So we're going to talk about some of the current events and the import-export compliance rules and regulations on how it affects your job, the skill sets, and some of that kind of stuff. I think I'm looking forward to some of those questions. This actually is more up your alley, I think, Lalo, as far as today's topic, isn't it?
Well, I guess it could be only because of the training part. I guess that we because of all the different training courses that we do. But I mean, we're not necessarily going to talk about training. We're just going to talk about what it now takes a trade professional to do their job versus, I mean, even as early as 2, maybe 3 years ago, but I shouldn't say that because it did start picking up. We always said that Trump 1 got trade professionals into the boardroom. They kind of still stayed in there with Biden. It was a little stagnant, but then now they're really in the boardroom. So
they're in the strategic planning as well as operations. So it's a whole different ballgame. Well, I'll say this. I think for our listeners, this is going to be one of those shows that if you are an executive, an owner, middle management or above, and you're looking at bolstering your compliance area, you've probably been told we need to add people, we need to do something, or we need to have a department in-house or whatever. This may be a good discussion because we're going to be talking about some things of probably what's on the plate of a compliance area, as well as logistics and transportation all. And you need to look at it from a standpoint of what we get in and talk about, how all of this is intermingled and what you need to do probably as a leader to look for the right teammates, because it ain't going to be just one person. It's probably going to be a whole group that you're going to need to pull together and look at. But anyway, I go on. We can get into this. Lalo, why don't you introduce our guest today?
Sure. So today we have Ashley Arnold, and if y'all are active on LinkedIn, you may actually know who she is because she's pretty active there. Well, in my feed anyway, and I've seen several of our team members here at Global Training Center, that I know she shows up as well. So I suppose if the algorithm picks you up as a trade professional or someone in trade or logistics or supply chain, I'm assuming she may have popped up every once in a while for you. But so we do have Ashley Arnold. She is a licensed customs broker. She's also CCS certified by the NEI. And she does have her own business, GEM Consulting. It's more like a coaching, consulting business. We'll let her get into a little bit more of what she does. Thank you, Ashley, for coming on and for joining us here on this episode.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very, very happy to be here. I told you earlier, I used to listen to the podcast, so it's full circle now that I get to be here and talk to both of you and give some of my insights. So I'm very, very happy to do it. And we certainly have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Well, you were saying before we started here, you were you must be the atypical trade nerd because you were reading trade news up until late 11 last night.
Late last night, right? So that's kind of the one difference now in trade compliance than, like you were saying, just a couple of years ago, or even when I got started, not going to age myself, but almost 2 decades ago. Back then it was classification, keying entries. That's what people thought about. Now it's more, we're focused on, court cases and litigation and, staying up at night to see appeals and, because customers are going to be asking the next morning, right? So you have to be connected all the time, which, well, I said, if you are on LinkedIn, you have probably seen me in my updates even today, because I think it is imperative to keep people updated. And when I say people, I mean people in the trade, importers, everyone, exporters, everyone doing business in practical terms that they can understand, because sometimes with this legal jargon, it's hard to miss. Not everybody knows to look for it, and it's hard to interpret.
Well, as you're looking at this, and Lalo, you mentioned it's like, and Trump won the compliance. I like how you put that. The compliance folks were at the table, and then it kind of, well, started getting swept to the side a little bit, maybe a little bit, or diminished as far as the compliance role. And now in his second term, well, I mean, to tell you, not only are the compliance people at the C-level table, but are having to deal with so many more factors at a much more detailed hands-on rate, strategic planning, the legal side of things, more than just what is our declaration to, well, what is the trend and in the industry and things of that nature. Is
You're
that what
trying
you're
to
seeing as
pivot.
well? Yeah,
Yeah.
trying to pivot to say, when you're saying that from a standpoint of the company may need to make a change, they can't do
Last minute.
business as at last minute. So it's like, okay, we need to make a change and be involved from an advisory role, not just saying, well, yes, you can do this, or no, you can't do that. You've got to come up with a solution too, right?
Right, right. I think if you had a compliance department, right, or even if you hired a compliance department at a broker, they were heavily involved before, like after the fact, like auditing and things like that. Now they're more involved from the get-go, right? And so are different departments like purchasing, sourcing, finance. That's because people have seen these really huge numbers hit their bottom line, and they want to know why now, right? Or they need to know what to expect next. So that's why trade compliance has such high visibility now. And I will definitely tell you, Andy, people are not only hiring, they're hiring double the amount that they used to for trade compliance, right? They used to say, okay, we need like one person, maybe two. Now, trade compliance departments are 5 and 6 people and still needing more because the work is more, not just even the audit after the fact. It's before. That's where it
Well,
is.
that's something that for somebody that is used to, running a company, oh, compliance was one of those things. And then all of a sudden, something goes wrong. And then the same people are like, well, why didn't you tell us? It's like, look,
Yes.
I'm doing everything I can now. The scenario now is, what is it? Just give a life in the day of a compliance person kind of a scenario. What is it that you're trying to keep up with? Because it's too much for one person. It's going to have to be a department.
A team, yes. And well, on the importer side, I would say you have to have visibility more than relying on your broker, right? Get an ACE. Everybody should be an ACE now. I mean, after CAPE, if you're not, run reports, schedule reports, audit right away, right? Don't wait until after the fact. And just make sure you're staying up to date. A day in the life of a trade compliance professional, on the other hand, like I said, I was up until late last night looking at appeals and thinking how this is going to change for this client. And I need to tell this client this morning. And not only was it just one, it was double. Yesterday, we had two harmonized tariff schedule updates in one day, a couple hours apart, just two. So programming, you have to think that it affects everything, right? So not only you're keeping clients updated, you're keeping clients like importers updated, you're keeping clients like tech companies updated because they need to update programming, right? It's huge now. Trade compliance is touching everything. And then you're also answering your everyday requests that you would have gotten before. Can you help me classify this? Can you file a PSC for me? Tell me how about a protest. Just the normal everyday things, free trade, all of that is still very, very relevant, on top of having to really educate about new things that are coming in the pipeline, like new Section 301s, right? So,
And have you seen, Ashley, that I've been getting clients that are more and more using or coming to us for trainings that were normally, I mean, I'm not saying they were never popular or anything. They were just not as popular as what we're seeing today. Like, for example, we're getting a lot of folks coming to our duty drawback courses. They're coming to
yes.
our USMCA class has never been as popular as it's been now, even in spite of the fact that it may change July 1st, and have my opinions on that. But
Yeah, I think that's
regardless,
why people are learning more about it now.
yeah, but the number one reason that they're telling me that they're coming to us is because it's not like they may not have declared USMCA in the past. Well, actually, top two reasons. But one of them that I'm thinking right now is that they are saying, "Hey, so we've always done USMCA and back then NAFTA, but we've never gotten audited as much as we are, not audited, but request for information or getting 28s, because now obviously the government is more interested in finding out, is this really USMCA or not, because it's obviously increased tremendously to avoid the added duties.
That's what I was going to say. And a lot of people were filing free trade because of the additional duties, right? I've seen definitely a lot more requests for information, a lot more scrutiny.
Well,
and around for sale too, just customs in general.
Well, and for our listeners on the USMCA, it's a great point because it applies also to other trade programs too. But the USMCA in particular is the content, the North American content. Basically, you have to know of your final widget, some percent of that has to come from either Canada, US, or Mexico as far as country of origins when you put it together, or it doesn't qualify anymore.
And be able to prove that.
And be able to prove that. That's the key right there, is that people have not had to really do that as much. So,
and FTA audits are not simple. I mean, they ask for detailed information.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that your FTA program is buttoned up.
Yep. That's the FTA, folks, is free trade agreement. So that's the scenario there, that why in particular your compliance people in today's world, Ashley, I'm sure you would agree with this, cannot be just in their office, in their area, and just having blinders on. You've got to network. You've got to have daily
be in the meetings,
weekly interaction with your accounting department, with your sourcing, with your transportation, with the upper management and all that. And your upper management folks, you need to be asking those questions. You need to be going by those compliance areas and say, are you getting everything that you need? Is there an area that is not responding to you regarding information requests? When you're looking at trying to classify something or make sure something's compliant, when I say classify, more than just the harmonized tariff, does it comply with, and is it classified to USMCA or another free trade agreement, right?
Right. And also look at opportunities, right? Some small to medium size importers don't always look at opportunities. So look at opportunities there. Can you maybe apply for an exclusion? I mean, there's always something. You just have to dig. And I think that's another thing that it has only changed in trade compliance because we've always had to research. But now we just have to, I think, be a little more creative and also give importers the information, right? So, proactivity. I'm huge on proactivity.
You're hitting on something that there's so much in here. I would have to say, let's step back here for a minute and kind of categorize. It's to me, when we're talking about doing all these things, it's almost overwhelming. And to simplify it, I mean, keep in mind, Ashley, I'm dumb as a box of rocks. I always say that. So it's like, okay, let's keep it simple. So in today's world, I mean, you were talking about, keeping people informed. So you got a communications effort there that is, literally wordsmithing things properly, going up the chain as well as, sideways and down, going to your clients and things of that nature. You've got an IT faction of being able to communicate what are the needs for the company and how does it relate to the different systems that could be not only the databases that keep up with your products, but to your sales and your customer service side of what is it you need to be charging? Is it a local sales
costing
and tax? Is it duties and taxes you're adding on top? Is it the, something else in there? The sourcing and or purchasing folks, that'd be a category in there to say, do you have the right, are you vetting, I guess, those companies properly and the products themselves? You said as an opportunity, if we add certain handles to a cabinet, it may qualify for something. Or if you take the handles off and add them after the fact or something like, I mean, that's, strategic. That's another thing, strategic planning for
tariff engineering,
the company. and then you've got your and your engineering, and then you've got your operational side of things, just keeping things flowing. I mean, that right there is like 5 things right off the bat, and
Right.
we're still going.
Right. But everybody just thought that it was keying an entry and getting it through customs. And that's not even adding PGAs or anything that's, so a day in the life is very fun, while also getting continuing education credits, which happy for them, because the more information, the better. So,
yeah. Well, I will say I was fortunate enough that years ago when I was managing an area, we were dealing with government affairs, which is a whole nother area of trying to affect change in the industry.
Yes.
And it's just literally just too much. And the traditional thing where there's a lot of trade nerds that will monitor the Federal Registry notice. Well, I didn't even know what that was at times, and all that Federal Registry, what's that? To different agencies, to different things that are going on, trade associations and all that. And literally, I just had to take and break up my team. And I had 5 different people that literally, I had 2 that were monitoring the Federal Registry notices. I had divided up trade associations amongst the different ones to say, this is what you're looking at. At the same time, having to plan out what is our regulatory affairs agenda.
Right.
And lay it out, saying, what do we want as a company to affect change? And so we would lay those things out, and then I would communicate that to upper management, saying, this, based on our strategy, what the company and the CEO and everybody has said, this is the regulatory affairs agenda that I'm seeing from an import and export perspective. Do you agree? Do you have anything else to add? Do you want to change it? Whatever. But pretty much I was giving, and of course I got that from my own staff, but I had to take that and communicate that up the chain. It made us so much more effective.
Yes.
And looking at that, so often today, there's a lot of compliance departments that are waiting for it to come down, and then they'll work on it.
Yeah.
I would say be proactive. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. On the importer level, especially, do not wait for your broker to tell you. Sign up for CSMS messages. Have your ACE portal. Look for your customs requests. Dive into ACE yourself. Don't wait for someone to tell you. Don't wait to get something in the mail that's going to take 3 weeks. And then you're going to have to respond tomorrow. So I have seen, though, and I will say this makes me very happy, more inquisitive importers. They're asking more questions. They want to know how to run these ACE reports. And I am happy to show them to do, how to do so. Why not? It's one more way to be proactive, right? So.
Well, and for upper management, you guys need to look at it. You don't need to know how to get into ACE or whatever. You just need to know that strategically,
somebody needs to be looking at it.
Somebody in your company needs to be proficient in getting into ACE. What is ACE? That's the Automated Customs
Environment.
Thank you. I forgot about the last one. Anyway, that is that's your portal to see what customs is looking at regarding entries that have been transmitted under your company's name and number.
And big thing to point out there, right? You may have seen entry packets from your broker, but the ACE portal is going to show you information in real time. So if any post entry has been done, CAPE stuff has been filed, it's going to show you what customs sees, not necessarily what your broker filed, right? If customs has taken action after the fact. So that's why it's important to be an ACE, not just look at entry packets.
Right. And you make earlier you were saying how you said something that triggered something in my mind regarding automations and systems and all that. I mean, do you, because of the amount of work and the amount of data and information that now everybody in trade needs to consume and put into their workflow, do you feel like folks are now more embracing software? I mean, let's be it AI or not, doesn't matter. I'm just talking about just software itself, because when I used to be in the software business, I'm not saying people didn't like it or use it or anything like that. What I'm saying is that they didn't. I felt like, okay, well, we have a tool, we're efficient and all that, and but it just never seemed like I imagine today might be required. Like if you don't have software, then there's no way you're going to do this. That's my
Exactly.
opinion. Yeah.
Exactly. So one entry that may have taken, 10 minutes before is taking upwards of an hour, if not more, right? With
Right.
everything you have to enter. Not even just that fact, but the audit factor, right? Auditing all of the lines is now taking more as well, right? So I am all for automation, whether it be AI or not, like you said. With the justification at the end, there's always a qualified person, making the final decision. I'm really glad to see customs having these discussions. I think customs knows because customs has to use AI, right? They
Right.
understand, okay, this is a lot more than what it used to be.
Mhm.
We're
Right.
seeing shipments that have to be broken down into multiple entries because they're hitting the line threshold.
Yeah.
I mean, who can imagine auditing that line for line and saying, yes, I feel comfortable saying this is 100%. On the other front, you have shipments that you have to key as a customs broker that are taking a long time. If you can automate a little bit of that process, and then obviously you're going to do your own audit before you're transmitting it, but then that's saving you the manual entry part. The manual entry part didn't used to be everything it is now. 10 minutes, send it, you get your release. Now it's taking you, I mean, maybe a day to key it. You get your release and somebody is still yelling, "Where's my stuff?" And they don't understand all the time that this isn't 10 years ago, you know?
Well,
Exactly.
one of the things too that I will say, companies need to really look at summarizing their commercial invoices with the same products. I'll give you a good example. There was a
Product
computer
libraries and
companies that wanted to
templates.
work.
Yes.
How,
Product libraries and templates make everything easy.
well, it does, but here's one of the things that I see happening is I'll ask, looking at a client, I said, do you have a consolidated commercial invoice is what it was called.
Mhm.
And they said, oh, definitely. I said, okay, fine. And launched into a new thing. And all of a sudden, we were getting, when I was working with a carrier and broker, we were getting commercial invoices for one shipment, 7,500 pages. It's like,
Yeah.
Lord, I thought you had a consolidated commercial
Yeah, this
invoice.
is not consolidated.
It's just not. I said, how are you consolidating? Oh, at the customer order level. I'm like, oh my gosh. So in this particular case, it was like, for example, a laptop case, a mouse, a hard drive,
Yeah.
a, you know, whatever accessory, a headset or this. So I said, okay. And I had to go in and work with their IT departments and finally get them to see. By the time we were done, literally it was a 3-page commercial invoice,
Right.
three
Something way more
pages
doable.
from
Yeah.
7,500 pages. And so the point being is, as a compliance person, you've got to have the skills to translate this complexity of what we're using. We're using terms in the compliance world, entries and terms of, the classification, and you translate that into layman terms where somebody like an IT person, they don't care if it's called an entry or a classification or whatever else. You got to translate that into what he or she can understand, and
Mhm.
go from there. That is a skill set that has to be developed
Yes.
because you've got to take yourself out of being this compliance person and into the layman world, right?
Right. And also, I think it's beneficial sometimes, even for us to cross over too, but for folks in different departments that need to help us to see firsthand what we're doing or what we need to accomplish, right? So this is what I've got, and I can only get this far, but I need it to do this. Like sometimes seeing it, I'm a very visual person, and I've
Mm-hmm.
found, especially with a lot of IT issues, hey, I can get this far, but I need it to go a little bit further. Can you do this? And they're like, yeah, sure. But if I am writing them an email or trying to explain it to them, it's really not going to go over. But so many people are doing so many great things. And listening to you talk about the commercial invoice and all of that led me to another point where there are even like companies now who can say, hey, here's the SOP that we know we need to follow, right? These documents don't match the SOP. This is wrong. That takes out so much work. Again, there's going to be a person auditing it at the end saying, oh, you're right. I need to go back, make sure, the Incoterms are correct or whatever it may be. But that takes out the actual manual process, right, of scanning through documents and saying, okay, this is wrong. So,
well, and to your point, what that is the way I put it, you've got to make sure that the information regarding that shipment is
right
synchronized.
first.
Yeah, it's right, it's correct, but that it's synchronized all the way from the the purchase order to the custom order to the pick and pack order to the bill of lading or air bill, whatever mode you're using, to the commercial invoice, to the letter of instructions, to all that, to the final delivery. All of that needs to go through, and your accounting side, does it have the right account codes so that when something is going out and it comes out from the manufacturer, they're going to have the right accounting code, and where it's charged to automatically. That automates all that process.
Right. Everybody needs to be involved.
Exactly. To that point, again, we come back to when we're talking about compliance, folks, we're talking about a scenario that touches, you said it, Ashley, it touches so many different things that if you are a smart business person, you're going to look at it. And so here's the challenge from a executive level. Have you asked and looked to see what your compliance people are going through, what your accounting, whatever? And I personally always look to say, let me go into these different departments, and then I start looking for what are the exceptions. Is your customer service, are they spending time on the phone trying to track down a shipment or information? If so, what kind of information? And then you reverse engineer it to, all that kind of stuff is, when you're consulting with your clients and all that. I mean, I'm sure that's one of the things that you've got to be able to communicate. Well, communicating means you've got to ask questions.
And think outside of the box. That's a big one. You have to think outside of the box. And we are not in the same world that we were, 10, 20 years ago. So something that used to work then does not work now. And a lot of times in trade compliance and logistics, supply chain, import and export, we hear a lot, well, we've always done it this way, right? That's a big
I was thinking that very thing.
Yes.
I don't think people are really looking at, well, we've always done it that way kind of thing anymore. If they are, they're
now
fighting to hang on to the old. And it's like, yes, we've migrated past that, I think, right?
Yeah. I hope, but you would be surprised. There are still some people who really don't understand. There are still some importers that do not have an ACE account. There are still some, and this has been since what, January, Customs hasn't been sending paper checks. So you probably have money sitting out there. So there's always going to be an exception. I'm telling you. That's why we have to push the information.
I will say that, this is one of those where we can go through. I was talking about the upper management going to the different departments and looking for the exceptions and asking questions. The other side of it is, especially to our compliance, our transportation, our logistics areas, what have you done to go and develop a relationship with other departments and look to see, do they have a problem with any transaction that moves through your department?
Or also say, hey, we're having this problem over and over. So let's solve it before it happens next time. Like, consult with me. Let's see what we're doing and then proceed, because then it can go more smoothly. Trade compliance, we all know, used to be a back end function. And then it would always say, well, hey, this is stuck in customs, or this has a hold, whatever it is. But I like to push it when those things happen as, let's prevent it next time. And this is how we do that, right? One time I implemented a biweekly call, right? So this way we know, here we are, we know these are our pain points, so we can address them proactively. It's way harder to put out fires. So.
Well, and to your point, the other thing is, if you've got a scheduled meeting or call once a week, twice a week, once a month, whatever, issues that come up, you can save those for that, make your notes, whatever, so that you can talk about it. If it's urgent, that's different. But if it's on a trend or whatever, and you're going through, that's one of those where you don't have to go, well, what do I do with this? And then eventually you toss it. It's like, no, let me throw that in the file for the call or this meeting, and that way you guys can tell us, like, hey, here's something that came up. It's an exception. It's a problem. Not sure where the breakdown came from, but I was needing information and I couldn't get it. And somebody had to go chase it down. And that comes into where you've got to have your IT people involved, hands-on. But we've been focusing a lot on the operation wise, but I mean, there's so many aspects we could go through and talk about this all day long, but it's the point that I'm hearing from you is you definitely have to reach out and communicate.
Yes, for sure. And I have also found it to be successful if you involve people, maybe like a logistics team and the compliance team working together, right? To say, hey, here are our trends. We started working together this month and look how much better it was, right? The proof is in the pudding. If people can see it, then most of the time they respond and they say, oh, okay, that did work and we'll continue to do this forward.
Well, and one of the measurement factors could be that you're looking at cycle times. When you're looking at reducing cycle times, that is big time. That's money.
Everyone notices that.
Everybody notices that. You're quicker, bigger, better, faster, cheaper, I think is one of the best ways to do it. And that's one of the best ways to do it. So,
yes.
Well, any last thoughts, Ashley? We need to, I guess, kind of wrap up here. But
I know we could talk about this forever. Well, to importers, stay informed, ACE and count, make sure all of your bank information is set up. And for trade professionals like us, stay involved, stay informed. I understand that it can be overwhelming. Reach out. I am always here. And I'm sure you've probably seen my posts, but can keep on keeping on. That's all we can do. That's why we love it. That's why we're still here.
Well, and that's one of the things, folks. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, connect with us. You can connect and look for Ashley Arnold. We'll have some of her information with the show notes and whatnot. But Lalo and I always are intrigued, and we definitely receive your requests for, to connect and then get messages and all of that. So Ashley, I'm sure you're very active, and this will be something that you'll hopefully see some responses from.
Yes, I love helping people and talking about trade all the time. I am definitely a trade nerd through and through. So
nice.
I love it.
Feel free.
I love it.
Thank you guys for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming
Folks,
on.
Have a great day. Like us, share us, connect with us. And with that, stay up to date.
Yes, that's the motto of today.